Hello, Joshua. How are you tonight?
Very well, Kenneth. How are you doing? Congratulations on a very successful show so far.
You know what? I'm going to tell you this, sir. We started this morning with our Chief Executive, Carrie Lamb, and we're ending with you, Mr. Joshua Setipa of UNTV.
I saw that. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you. So, how about this? Let's keep it a bit more lively because this is meant to be a fireside chat. Why don't you give the Asian audience a bit of background about yourself and all the amazing things that have taken you to now lead UNTV?
Wow. Well, thank you very much once again, Kenneth, for this opportunity. I joined the Technology Bank just under 2 years ago. Straight from Lesotho. I'm born and bred in Lesotho, which is one of only 3 kingdoms in Africa. For those that are not aware, the other 2 being Morocco and Eswatini. And Lesotho is a landlocked mountain kingdom within South Africa. And before that, I worked for the World Bank. Before that, I worked for the WTO, the World Trade Organization. So my background has been trade policy and development, and I've also worked, of course, for my government in Lesotho. So I have had the opportunity to work on both sides of policy. I've worked with small businesses. I was head of the investment promotion agency in Lesotho. So I worked with startups, and I have learned a lot in how we have to continuously support startups and build the ecosystems they need for them to thrive. So that is my background, and that's what I bring to this role.
For those who don't know, UNTV is the startup of the UN agencies. I mean, I honestly cannot think of a better organization such as yourself to be part of the Startup Impact Summit. I mean, it's almost as if that you guys are the headliners and we created Startup Impact Summit to support your causes. So in some sense, because of COVID-19, I realized a bit of research a few months ago that UNTV launched something called the Technology Access Partnership, TAP. Can you share with us, the Start Me Up Hong Kong audience here, what is the vision originally for launching TAP?
The motivation and the rationale behind the launch of the Tech Access Partnership was what we all saw. I believe everyone saw 3 months ago on their TVs when countries big and small were scrambling to get hold of COVID-19 medical equipment. And it didn't matter whether you had the money, whether you're a powerful country or not, we were all queuing up to access these products from the same suppliers. And supply was outstripped by demand. Now imagine what the challenge for small, least developed countries was if big economic powerhouses like Europe and North America were struggling also. So the idea behind the TAP was, how do we enhance and support manufacturing capacity in the least developed countries so that they can be able to better protect themselves against the COVID-19 pandemic without having to rely on global supply chains which had almost collapsed and prices had more than quadrupled. And it was no longer an issue of whether you had the money, it was an issue of whether you know the right person at the right place to give you the supply. So the rationale behind the TAP is to source or identify technology holders that are able or willing to share their innovations with manufacturers in least developed countries and be able to support that scaling up of the production capacity. We as a TAP serve primarily as a platform where we matchmake. We identify technology holders, we match them with technology seekers, and we provide support and capacity building to make sure that they can be able to scale up and also repurpose, because most of them are manufacturers, but manufacturing other items. So if you are building, for example, assembling air conditioners, then we help you start assembling ventilators, for example, which are in short supply and very critical to countries' efforts to get people better again after this suffering from this pandemic. So that is the long and short of the Tech Access Partnership.
Thank you, sir. And if I recall correctly, because the theme of startups in 2020 during COVID is that very important P word. Well, there are many P's, but in this case, partnership, right? I believe that TAP is a result of multiple UN agencies working together. Is that correct, Joshua?
That is absolutely correct. The Tech Access Partnership is led by the Technology Bank in partnership with UNDP, which I know has been participating throughout today, with UNCTAD, which is also another UN entity that is headquartered in Geneva, and also, of course, with the World Health Organization, which is at the forefront of the fight against the coronavirus. So that is on the UN side. But we also have multiple other partners in the private sector. We have partners that are providing access to their technologies. We have NASA, for example, the jet propulsion colleagues have made available the ventilator technology. We have other non-government organizations like Engineers Without Border that are helping us provide know-how, which we extend to manufacturers to enhance their capacity to be able to produce this medical equipment. And we are continuously looking for more partners. And this is one of the reasons that we are here, and hope that we can also be able to generate interest and support among the Hong Kong startups to be able to join us and help provide the support that is so urgently required.
Absolutely. As our chief executives explicitly mentioned, Hong Kong is all about openness and providing and resources and know-how sharing. On that note, for the Startup Impact Summit ecosystem, Joshua, let's get into a bit more specifics, because we also want to know how best to support TAP and UNTB. If you have 3 very specific requests, and let's not be shy here, because I think in this day and age, we have to lead by concrete action. Otherwise, we just go back to the same old. So again, 3 concrete points from UNTB, sir, of how we can actually assist between our family offices, between our foundations, between our private companies, listed companies, any types of institutions.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Our mission statement is to use private sector tools to provide public sector solutions at scale. So from that, it goes without saying that from startups and from other interested parties, we're looking for solutions. We're looking for technological solutions that we can then be able to scale up. Because when you look at the issues that we deal with, we're dealing with issues from the country level, from the community level, all the way to the continental level. And if we can be able to scale up the solutions and the innovations that we are able to acquire, that means that we're making impact. And those technologies have to allow us to make transformational impact. That is the key word. If we can be able to make the impact, it means that the support that we're extending to communities and to countries is sustainable, way beyond even the current pandemic. And I should also, as a second point, note that, yes, right now the preoccupation is COVID-19, but the solutions that we're looking for are solutions that will support countries to recover quick enough from this pandemic to ensure that the socioeconomic recovery prospects are much better than currently, where manufacturing has come to a halt, economic activity has come to a stop, and then every other indicator across the board, the entire sustainable development goals are suffering. So if we're going to talk about access to public health and access to inclusive growth, we have to get the economy going. We have to drive inclusive economic growth. And this is where supporting manufacturing, for example, is very key. So partners that can be able to help us drive a restart economic activity, that is very important. Last but not least, we are looking for technologies that have been tried and tested, that we can be able to deploy and be able to adapt to the challenges that the countries that we serve currently face. And I must also underscore one important point, is that the mandate of the Technology Bank is to support least developed countries. There are 47 of them globally, 33 in Africa, and the rest in South and Southeast Asia, and also in the Pacific. But for the purpose of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, we are providing support and extending assistance to all developing countries, which means that all countries, with the exception of a few, Europe and North America, benefit from the support that the TEP Access Partnership is offering. So that is the advantage that we have, including Hong Kong. Hong Kong is China is a developing country, so they would qualify also for support under the TEP.
Right, and I think, in principle, that makes a lot of sense, because as you can see in the real world that's impacting all our lives every day, some countries have flattened the curve. Some countries have flattened and things got, unfortunately, rebounded. Some have been controlled better. Just, sir, for you today, Hong Kong has been through this for months, and today, for some reason, we saw the first spike in the last 40 days, right? So this is just a reminder that you're right, COVID-19 is the current issue, but what I think TAP is trying to achieve and will achieve with global support is that we are supposed to build a foundation that essentially ensures that any future pandemics, any future disturbances, such as COVID-19, can be preempted. And if it does happen, we are in a fighting position to flatten it in a much faster pace and momentum. So, is that correct, sir?
You're absolutely right, and resilience being the key word here. If we can be able to support at least developed countries and other developing countries to be able to strengthen their resilience, ensure that their health systems are strong enough, so that the next pandemic, because we keep hearing that there's another pandemic coming very soon, that will ensure that recovery periods are shorter, and that the disruptive or the disruption to our way of life is minimized than currently what we see. So it is very important. But I should also note that as a startup, the Technology Bank had to pivot out of our annual 2020 work program, where we were already delivering a range of support activities to least developed countries to respond to this challenge. So 6 months ago, this was not on our radar screen. But in February, when we realized the scale of the pandemic, it was very clear for us that unless we took it upon ourselves to lead the global effort to support the least developed countries specifically, there is a real chance that they would fall through the cracks, as we have noticed, and which is also one of the main rationale or reasons behind the establishment of the bank, that the gap between the rest of the world and least developed countries is growing exponentially. So unless there was a deliberate effort to narrow that gap, we would see much more higher level of destruction in the LDCs. So that is a very fundamental issue and the rationale behind what we are doing. I should also note that as a startup, we have approached the TAP in an incremental way, like any startup, where our MVP was, for those that have the time, I would highly recommend that they visit our website and see how we are building that platform, to be able to understand both sides of the transaction. On the demand side and on the supply side, what do technology holders look for? What are they seeking to do? And then see how we can facilitate that. It is also important to note that technology transfer is at the heart of what we do. But we do not see technology transfer as just a transaction. It is a journey. It is a journey that we will walk along with the technology holders and also those seeking technologies to ensure that it is sustainable and it actually leads to transformational impact. And that, I think, is where our value proposition is.
Right. And, personally speaking, sir, I think sometimes we don't appreciate the privilege that all of us live in, because we have so much resources at our hands in terms of Hong Kong as a community. And if, like you said, if people can take away 1 point from this very short 30-minute fireside chat with someone like you, sir, who stands on the foothills of the United Nations as a startup and advance progress, initiatives, and more importantly, I think an innate passion to better the world, I think all of us will be in a better place. And Asia as a community, we have a lot of that. So for those of you listening and tuning in to the current live streaming, as well as the future recorded versions, I would strongly implore all of you to take a look at the purpose, especially the young ones listening, of what you can for sure achieve in this world, as after all, 2020 is the decade of action. Sir, back to you. I mean, if you have one or two concrete objectives of how you can quantify or qualify in your mind the success of TAP by end of this year, would you be able to share some of that with us so that we can actually do a better job activating the resources available within the Startup Impact Summit community?
One major takeaway that I hope to gain from this experience is the network of partnerships that will support our continuous efforts to build and strengthen existing innovation ecosystems in least developed countries. Because at the end of the day, it is a reality that innovation exists in every society. The only difference is that other societies like Hong Kong, the ecosystem actually facilitates for that innovation to thrive. Now, if we can build networks and partnerships through this platform, that will allow us to establish this network and extend it to the LDCs and be able to support a thriving ecosystem, which will allow us to showcase the innovation capacity that already exists, that we know exists. That will be a major success. Now, secondly, it is also very important for us to keep in mind that innovation or ideas that can change the world don't necessarily have to start in big multi-million-dollar innovation labs. They can actually start in your own garage. They can start in your own basement. And the technology, the UN Technology Bank is a partner that can help scale those innovations and actually be able to ensure that they actually drive the transformational impact that every one of us seeks to see. Whether we are talking about access to clean drinking water, whether we're talking about renewable energy solutions, all those innovations are there within us. And we are the partner that can scale them up. We are the partner that can ensure that we build the networks that would allow also the startups in Hong Kong to benefit from the innovation that is coming out of the LDCs. And if you allow me, I just want to cite one example of a call for innovation that we're about to launch. As you know, Bangladesh, which is a least developed country, is host to the second biggest population of displaced people. And the same also with Uganda. Uganda is the third in the world. They host a huge refugee population. Now, we are going to launch a call for innovations very soon, where we're going to invite innovators to come up with scalable solutions around sanitation. If you can provide cost-effective, high-tech sanitation solutions that would facilitate those communities that are hosting these displaced communities, that would be a very important intervention. And that will ensure that the quality of life for those displaced people is much, much better than what it currently is. So that's just an example of what we are doing as an institution to partner with the private sector, to partner with innovators and startups to bring real life solutions to real life situations.
Right. And I think, to end this fireside chat, I think one concrete step that we as the startup Hong Kong ecosystem can do is WHub, who is the host of Startup Impact Summit, is Asia's one of the largest and most active startup ecosystems. So we should definitely explore, sir, with your permission, some sort of partnership where we can take the initiatives, the objectives, and more importantly, the vision where UNTB, with all its great UN public and private partners, see us, the WHub, I'm sure Karen and Karina, our spiritual leaders for this amazing initiative, would agree to this. Again, use us as a platform to help you, sir, build out what you wish to see across Asia Pacific. To end this call on a happy and high note, sir, from you, 2 advice that you would give your younger self that you can share so that we will benefit a lot of the young founders and founders-to-be listening to you for the first time, probably, as head of a UN agency. Thank you, sir.
I would tell myself, I would remind myself that every solution or every idea, if nurtured and if supported and articulated, can actually lead to change. So never give up on your idea because you think it's too small or because it is not popular. The most important thing is to have very, very clear sense of what contribution do you want to make in society. And if you can be able to allow that to drive you, then you can be able to make the impact you want to make in society. So there is no solution, there is no idea that is too small or too far-fetched to work. All that matters is whether you have a very clear sense of the impact that you want to make, and that impact is possible.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you end day 1 of Startup Impact Summit. That wisdom, sir, that you gave. You know, even I am feeling goosebumps right now because this is what we seek. We seek people who are knowledgeable and with the know-how and most importantly, the heart. And thank you, sir, on behalf of the Hong Kong community for leading UNTB and supporting all these much needed initiatives in PPE within TAP for the LDCs. On that note,
thank you very much for having us, and we look forward to participating next year.
All right, thank you, sir. So on that note, we bid you goodbye. Tomorrow is another exciting day 2 of Startup Impact Summit. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.